So today, what I want to talk about is an issue that came up when I was talking to the parents of some of the students that I've got, and that is to do with how to support children or how to support your child through learning the piano. I've basically got 5 tips that I can give to you if you're a non-musical parent that requires zero musical talent as well, to encourage the growth of your child. So let's have a look at it. The good news is that you don't have to be a musical genius in order to support your child through music. If you think about it in the same way as when your kid goes through school, you give them a wee bit of support doing their maths or their English or their science or their French or whatever it is, music is no different. When you first start, or when your kid starts to learn music, the thing, music is not rocket science. You've got a few basic things to remember: posture, how to finger numbers, note values, and some basic music as well. And as I said, it doesn't take long to learn. I mean, it's a quick look at the book, and you're already on the path to support your child. Of course, eventually what will happen is, they'll start playing stuff and doing things that are beyond your understanding, and that's fine. We can't be experts in every field, but by that time, the ball is well and truly rolling, and they're on their way to getting a better understanding of how to play piano. Okay, here we go. So, out of the 5 tips, here's tip number 1. The first one is just to learn with them. As I mentioned before, it's not rocket science. The books that are used generally, if it is books that your child's using, are pretty straightforward. You have a few fundamentals to learn, and if you learn them with them, it just means that you can sort of watch what they're doing, you can listen to what they're doing, and you can maybe kind of give some sort of constructive criticism back, to see if things are going wrong or not. So, as I said, tip number 1, just learn with them. Tip number 2 is to make sure that your keyboard or the piano, in fact, this goes for any instrument, is in a place where it's easily accessible. You don't want to take your piano or keyboard and put it into like the garage at the back of the garden, where it's freezing, and it just gives all of a sudden you're thinking, I've got 101 excuses to not go out there, like it might be too cold, or it's miles away and I'm sitting here and I'm quite happy, whatever. That means that any obstacle you put in the way is just another excuse to not do any practice. The other extreme to that is taking your piano and putting it like in the middle of the kitchen or in the middle of the living room. So if they're sitting there and they're maybe a bit bored, the piano or the keyboard is right in front of them. And often when it just catches their eye, they think, oh, I think I'll just have a wee play here. Now, I'm not always going to guarantee that they pick up the assignments that have been given to them by their teacher and then and become masters. However, sometimes that doesn't matter. What the key thing is that they're getting backwards and forwards to the keyboard. They're becoming familiar with the layout. They're understanding how their fingers and their arms work and how they should be sitting and stuff like that. So just make it accessible. That's definitely one of the excellent sort of ways forward. The other thing that I would recommend is getting into a habit of when practice should be done. So, for example, I've got a student who he gets up in the morning, he gets ready for school, he has his breakfast, and then he'll sit down and he'll do 10 or 15 minutes on the keyboard, which is plenty if you're doing it on a regular basis at that stage. And that's just been built in as a habit. Some other people will maybe do it, once the oven goes on to start cooking the dinner or something like that, then that's a cue to go and practice. And as I said, it becomes a habit. And then you just do it without really thinking about it. And honestly, that backwards and forwards to the keyboard on a regular basis, it really does, it builds your confidence, and it makes progression much faster as well. My 4th tip is positive reinforcement, and again, this goes in any sort of field. You don't want to be turning around going, that's rubbish. That's not going to encourage anybody to do anything. What you want to be doing is just making sure that when you hear something nice, you encourage them. If you see them sitting well, just say, you're sitting well, or that sounded good, but maybe you could try this. Always be positive about anything that your kids are doing on the keyboards. And again, no talent required from you. You've got ears, you can hear what's happening. You've got eyes, you can see what's happening. So you don't need to be a musician to do that. My 5th tip is Google it. Google it's maybe a bit of a broad term, but with my students, what I do is I tend to encourage them to send me a message. We use Tanara, which I'll leave a link somewhere, maybe there. to show you what it's all about. But what's really good about Tonara is there's an instant messenger in it, and you can, well, I encourage students to send me videos or audio or questions through the week so that they can, I can like give them a personalised response. Googling it is okay to a certain extent. You know, you can definitely look up problems and get people's opinions, but the thing about getting feedback from your teacher is it's always personalised. So if they come to you and they're stuck or they seem frustrated, then, you know, just find out what the problem is and then get in touch with your teacher, or you know, have a look on Google and see if you can find the answer that way. Before I go into the last point, you know, if you are a musical parent, if you find the information this useful, then please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. There's loads of videos to help learning theory and how to play, practice tips and all the rest of it. If you've got any questions or suggestions, then please leave them in the comments below. The last thing I want to go into is just talking about what you could be doing if you are a musical parent. Now, I probably don't need to be telling you this if you are a musical parent, to be fair, but there's just a couple of ideas. One of the things that that's really good is if your child is playing a piece and it's got two hands, for instance, needed for it, then you could play the left hand while they play the right, or vice versa. And that just gives them practice, that gives them separate practice, which is always good. Also lets them hear what it's going to sound like once they put it back together. You know, so it builds that confidence and offers that support. The other thing you could be doing, and I've got parents who do this, you could play the duet parts that come with any sort of method book that, you know, that has duets in it. It's always good to have that. You know, it just makes it a bit more fun. Piano can be a bit lonely occasionally, and sometimes that's a good thing. But, you know, just to make it a bit more fun, then sit down and play the duets with them. If there is no duet part, then you could always just ask the teacher for, you know, the chord structure, or you can figure it out yourself if you're musical, and just make up your own accompaniment for it. The other thing, just following on from that actually, is that I've got a student as well who's got his dad is a guitar player, and sometimes if there's no duet part, or if they don't want to play the piano part, that's fine. But what we can do is we can give it a chord structure, just turn it into like a mini lead sheet, and then they can sit there and they can play the guitar along with their kid playing the piano. And again, it just gives that, you know, something to do with your kid, and also gives you that, it makes it a bit more fun to actually to do that. Anyway, if you're not a musical sort of parent, that's fine. I've given you 5 tips on how to you know, support your child. There's also a bunch of videos just here that'll offer some help on sort of beginner level theory to help support their learning as well. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Cheers.